Alright guys, another day in the shop. Finishing up, well, I don't know about finishing today, but I'm going to try to get this carburetor here finished up. I've got the primary side pretty much all rebuilt, cleaned up really well. Like I said, there was a lot of grit in there. Cleaned it up really well. I've got to take apart the metering block for the secondary side, get that all cleaned up. Try to get this carburetor all back together so I can get it back on the engine. The other thing I have going on, I don't know if you can see it back there, got my oil pan all welded up. Yeah, I'll show you guys real quick the weld job I got going on here. Basically just took my TIG welder and ran it across the entire length of the seam. It was cracked in this region right here. Just for safety measures, I went across the whole thing. I hit it with a little bit of just silver metallic paint just to protect the weld. So that guy's all welded up. I got to get back into the car. So I still have to clean off the block itself where the oil pan sits, so I can put some silicone in the corners of the oil pan. We'll get that guy tightened back up, fill it with oil, try to get this carburetor rebuilt, and then I still have to do my exhaust. But yeah, right now I'm going to finish rebuilding this carburetor, with the oil pan in, and hopefully I can get this thing moving around. Okay guys, we got the old carburetor here. Got her all apart in little pieces. All the other parts laid out. No one wants to see us take apart a carburetor. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. Just try to keep track of where all the jets were, because even the air bleeds in the top, as I saw, were different sizes, inside to out, as well as the squirting jets there. It's all back together. Got my headers on with new gaskets. First thing we have to do is fire up the fuel pump and set the float levels here so that they are adjusted and we're not flooding the carburetor or the engine, and the carburetor has enough fuel before we fire that up. Hopefully the battery has juice in it still, but we'll get the carburetor adjusted here, at least the floats adjusted, and we'll try to fire this thing up. Alright, first thing first, we'll check for leaks here. I'm gonna turn it on, okay? I think it's this one. Any leaks? We got shutting down. Coming out of the float. Well, we kind of expected that. Oh yeah, look, we're flooding her up. Okay, now I can adjust these. Alright, so I think I showed everyone how to do this the first time around, but basically we're going to take out these sight plugs here. The float adjustment, or at least to adjust the needle and seat, is going to be done from these two here. And basically we're just going to set the fuel so it's just below that sight line. Alright, we're going to try to fire this thing up. Got new plugs in it. Actually, you know what I might want to do first? I'm going to pull the coil wire off, crank it to get the oil around a little bit, and then check the oil again. Let me pull the coil wire off there. Coil's back on, so let's see if it fires up. Yep. Alright, try it again. Yep. Again. Go ahead. So I had these adjusted so where I had it running best before I rebuilt the carburetor. So I'm going to set these all now to turn in a half and see if that helps. Alright, try it again. Alright guys, as you can see from the video a few moments ago, I was really having trouble getting this thing to idle, to do anything. Messing around with the float adjustment a bunch of times, finally got the float sort of adjusted. No matter where I put the idle bleed screws, it made absolutely no difference. I don't claim to be a carburetor expert by any means. I mean, all my carbureted life, I avoided Holleys for whatever reason. I know it sounds funny, but I always found them complicated. Even though now that I know how they operate and I'm older, they're not very complicated. They're easy to tune once you understand them. But I just wanted to show you guys what I did wrong when I rebuilt this carburetor. And the reason is, you know, Holley has so many different carburetors, so many different configurations. This one happens to be a 4150, but even in the kit comes with 4 different throttle plate gaskets to the main body housing, and the one I chose, for whatever reason, I didn't realize it was also blocking the idle circuits. So we weren't getting fuel into the engine at idle, which is why it would only run when I would essentially pump the accelerator or giving it fuel from the accelerator pump. So let me show you the gasket real quick that I was having issues with. So obviously this is the throttle plate that I was talking about, and I have it back on because I have the right gasket on. Now this is the gasket I took off before I rebuilt the carburetor, and this is the gasket I had on in its place. And if you look at the holes here, they are different than the holes on there. And as you can see, if I sort of line this up, this hole is now blocked. There it is, see? And that hole here is for the idle circuit. So that's why I couldn't get it to idle. And now hopefully you put the carburetor back on here. So I got my carburetor, got my spacer plate. I'm going to put it back on the motor and reset my idle bleeds, and hopefully we can get this thing to fire up. Alright Dad, before we fire it up, just turn on the fuel pump. Let's make sure nothing's leaking. Okay, everything looks good that way. Okay, yeah, try it. Yep. Alright guys, so now that it's actually running on its own, I realized that I had the throttle stop for the secondaries a little too tight, so I just backed that down till it closed, and it just touches the stop on there. Unfortunately, you got to pull the carburetor up to adjust that screw, but you know, only a few bolts here to do so. So I now have that there. I'm going to fire this thing back up, and now we should be able to adjust the idle and the air bleeds to get this thing to actually run right. So, yeah, that fired up.